In the name of Allah, the especially merciful and the entirely merciful. With you, Mr. Said Salama, teacher of English from Al-Kafrawi Official Language Schools in New Damietta. Today, inshallah, we are going to have a grammar lesson concerning the tenses in English. As you know that grammar is very important. The language of grammar teaching is important in English language teaching field. So we can say that grammar is the base of the English language. Grammar is not acquired naturally, but through learning and through teaching. So it needs to be instructed, it needs to be taught well. As you know that grammar helps people of the same language communicate easily with each other. Now let's get it started. Space, he was a student. He was writing short stories. My dear friends, my dear students, I'm giving you just 5 seconds to answer this question. Space, he was a student. He was writing short stories. Okay. While he was a student, he was writing short stories. So the question is, why did we choose while? While he was a student, he was writing short stories. That's easily because at the very beginning, as I have told you, you have to omit or delete just two options. You cannot use after and as soon as, because the after and as soon as can do the same thing. So they are omitted, they are deleted. Okay. So on. Why can't you choose on? Because as you know that on is a preposition. On is a preposition or a preposition followed by a gerund. You can say on reaching the field, on finishing, on playing. So on is a preposition followed by a gerund. I mean by a gerund, a verb followed by ing, or it can be used by a noun. You can say on the arrival of the ship, on the arrival of the ship. So after and as soon as can be used interchangeably. They can do the same meaning. They have the same functions. As you know that after and as soon as are conjunctions that are used to show that one actions happened before and or after the other. So the correct answer is while, because we use while when we are talking about two things or two actions that are happening simultaneously or are happening at the same time. So the correct answer is while. Now let's move to the next question. You have to think carefully. Before you talked about him, I space of that novelist. Yes, give me your answer quickly. That's true. Before you talked about him, I space of that novelist. Remember that. Before is a connector or a conjunction that is used to talk about two actions. One of these actions happened before the other. So, before you talked about him, there is something that happened before that time. So, you have a first action and you have a second action. So, in the first action, you have a verb in the past simple. So, what's missing? Another past simple or another past perfect. So before followed by a past simple tense. So what's missing? The missing verb should be in the past simple or in the past perfect. So before you talked, this is past simple. Before you talked about him, I hadn't ever heard. You cannot use haven't or don't because you are talking about situations that happened in the past. You are talking about two actions. One of them happened before the other. So the correct answer, before you talked about him, I hadn't ever heard of that novelist. The next. Someone next door space heavy metal music all night long. I didn't get a wink of sleep. Think carefully. Okay. Someone next door had been playing heavy metal music all night long. I didn't get a wink of sleep. Letter B and the letter D must be deleted, must be omitted. You can delete them. Why? Because you are talking about something that happened in the past. So the past tense and the present cannot go together. So remember that present attracts present and past attracts past. So you cannot someone next the door has and didn't at one sentence. Remember that present attracts present, past attracts past. So has played in letter B and has been playing, they are both omitted. So we still have was playing and had been playing. Was playing, this is in the past progressive tense or in the past continuous tense. It means that at a moment in the past or during some period of time which is now over. So was playing, this is a complete thought. In that it doesn't require additional information, so it describes past event. In this sentence I'm not describing, I'm not just giving an or a description of something, because we do not have some kind of interruption. We don't have two actions that were happening at the same time, so I cannot use was playing. So the correct answer is had been playing. So had been playing, this is called a past perfect, progressive, a past perfect progressive. The next, I was playing, in the past progressive tense, it means that at a moment in the past or during some period of the time which is now over. So my playing was happening. Grammatically, it is a completed thought in that it doesn't necessarily require further or additional information. But when we use the past perfect tense, it must be used as follows. They had been talking for over an hour before Tony arrived. Look at this. Had been talking. This is called past perfect continuous. For over an hour, this is a period of time. Before Tony arrived, this is past simple. So the rule is, we use the past perfect continuous plus a period of time like for an hour, and you have a sentence, another sentence in the past simple. So if you have a past simple tense and a period of time, so what's missing? The past perfect continuous. So had been talking, this is a past perfect continuous. For over an hour, this is a period of time. Before Tony arrived, this is another sentence in the past simple. Number 2, she had been working at that company for 3 years when it went out of business. Look at the structure here. Had been working, this is past perfect continuous. For 3 years, this is a period of time. When it went out of business, this is a sentence in the past simple. How long had you been waiting to get on the bus? Had you been waiting? This is a past perfect continuous. How long? This is the time or the period I am asking about. Mike wanted to sit down because he had been standing all day at work. Look at this. Had been standing. This is past perfect continuous. All day, this is a period of time. Wanted, this is a past simple tense. James had been teaching at university for 3 years or for more than a year before he left for Asia. James had been teaching. This is past perfect continuous. For more than a year. This is a period of time. Before he left for Asia. This is past simple tense. So remember that rule. When you have past perfect continuous followed by a period of time, so what's missing? A past simple. So if you have a sentence of the past simple and a period of time, so what's missing? A past perfect continuous. The next, although the police suspected him, he was able to prove that he spaced when the time or the crime was committed. Think carefully, my dear friends, my dear students. Although the police suspected him, he was able to prove that he spaced when the crime was committed. Now let's see the right answer. Although the police suspected him, he was able to prove that he was working when the crime was committed. I have a question for you right now. What was he doing when the crime was committed? So the accused man is asked to describe what he was doing when the crime was committed. So the past continuous is used to show that an ongoing past action was happening at a specific moment of interruption. You know, interruption. Something interrupted something else. While I was sleeping, the telephone rang. While I was playing, I fell down. So this is a kind of interruption. So when you talk about something that interrupted something else, so the longer action should be used in the form of the past continuous. While I was working. While I was working. While I was working, the crime was committed. Or the crime was committed while I was working. So we have some sort of interruption. One of the actions interrupted the other. So the correct form is was working, because you have two actions. One of them interrupted the other action. The next. When I was in Sharm el-Sheikh, I spaced a lot. Okay, now let's see the answer. When I was in Sharm el-Sheikh, I would sunbathe a lot. Why did I choose would sunbathe? Because I am talking about past actions. As I told you before, there are two ways to express past actions or past habits. One of them is commonly known by everyone. We used to plus the base form or plus the infinitive to talk about past actions or to talk about past situations or past experiences. So when I was young, I used to play in the street. When I was young, I used to sing a lot. When I was young, I used to go to the beach. This is one way to express past actions or past situations or past experiences. There is another way to express the past actions or the past experiences or the past situation. It's would sunbathe. So when I was in Sharm el-Sheikh, I used to sunbathe, or I can use when I was in Sharm el-Sheikh, I would sunbathe. So would plus the infinitive or plus the base form is also used to express past habits or past actions. Would, remember this one. Space reaching the airport, Ali found out that he had left one of the suitcases. Okay. On reaching the airport, Ali found out that he had left one of the suitcases. Okay. Why have I chosen on reaching the airport? Ali found out that he had left one of the suitcases. Okay, as you know that all these four connectors or connections or conjunctions or prepositions, as you call them, all these four words can be followed by a gerund. So when you try answering this sentence, you have to look carefully at the meaning of the sentence, because on can be followed by a gerund, while also can be followed by a gerund, when also can be followed by a gerund, despite also can be followed by a gerund. So these four words or these four connectors or conjunctions can be followed by a gerund. You can say on reaching, while reaching, when reaching, despite reaching. So you have to look carefully at the meaning of the sentence and the use of each one of these words. Number one, on as a preposition, when is followed by a gerund, this means directly after or immediately after. So when on is followed by a gerund or VING, it means directly after or immediately after. So on hearing the news, she burst into tears. On seeing the accident, she called the police. On hearing the news, she fainted. Okay, so when on is followed by VING or gerund, it means directly after. When while is used or followed by a gerund, it means that one time act or during that time or at the same time. When while is used by ing, means when it's followed by ing. So while and when are the same. While and when are the same because they means during this time or during this time. So while means during this time. When also means during this time. So while and when followed by gerund, they have the same meaning and the same function. Despite has got a different meaning. As you know that despite means although. So despite, when despite is followed by a gerund, so it is a preposition. It is a preposition used to show that something happened although you couldn't expect it. So there is a surprise. So despite is also a preposition used to show that something happened although you wouldn't expect it. So on reaching the airport is the correct answer, because on reaching the airport means immediately after reaching or directly after reaching the airport. Ali found out that he had left one of the suitcases. Now let's move to the second one or the next question. I think it's very easy. Now let's see the answer. While space the new plan, she noticed that it was too long. As you know that while as a preposition or a connector can be followed by a gerund. So the correct answer is revising. While revising the new plan, she noticed that it was too long. The next, think carefully. Okay. By 2010 I spaced 3 novels. It was a great achievement for me. So the correct answer is before 2010 I had written 3 novels. It was a great achievement for me. As you know that by is a preposition. When this preposition is followed by a time or a previous time or a past time like 2010 or 2010, this is a time that finished or a time that had gone. So by 2010 it means before this time, before this time. So by 2010 it means before 2010. Before 2010 is out, so there is something that happened before that time. And as you know that we use the past perfect to show that something happened before another something. Something happened before another something. So by 2010 there is some action. This is the second action. So what is the first action? Before 2010 I had written 3 novels. So this is past perfect. Why? Because writing 3 novels came before this time. So you have 2 actions. One of them happened before the other. So by 2010 I had written. So writing the 3 novels came before this time. So the first or the action that comes before the other can be used in the form in the past perfect, because 2 actions, one of them happened before the other. So by here means before. The next, having space in medicine, he became a doctor. Okay, now let's see your answer. Having graduated in medicine, he became a doctor. Now let's have a quick look at the use of having or having when it's followed by a past participle. So having plus the past participle, it is used to talk about past experiences or past situations, or when you are talking about finished actions. For example, she admitted having stolen the money. Okay, having graduated in medicine, this means that after he had finished learning, or after he had graduated, so after the action had finished. So having plus the past participle is used to talk about finished action. So the action here finished. So having graduated. Remember this one. While I spaced home, I saw some of my friends. Yes, your answer. While I was walking home, I saw some of my friends. So while as a preposition or as a connector, when it's followed by a past continuous or a past progressive, so this is used to show that An ongoing past action was happening at a specific time of interruption. So while I was walking, so this is an action that was interrupted. This is, or there is a kind of interruption. You know, interruption, two actions interrupted each other. And as I told you before, that if you have two actions, one of them interrupted the other, so the action that took longer time should be used in the past continuous tense. So the action that took longer time, so the longer action should be used in the past continuous tense, but the shorter one is used in the past simple form. Like, so while I was walking home, so this is a longer action. I saw some of my friends, this is the shorter action. This is the action that interrupted the other one. So with longer actions we use past continuous, with shorter ones we use past simple. Okay, the next one. We arrived an hour late. The film space an hour earlier. Okay. We arrived an hour late. The film had begun an hour earlier. In this example, or in this sentence, it's quite clear that we have two actions. One of them happened before the other, and as we have mentioned that the past perfect tense is usually used with past actions. The verb in the past perfect shows the first past action. For example, she had eaten her breakfast before she went to school. So in this example we arrived an hour late. So this means that the film started. The film started before we arrived. So the film started before we arrived. So the film, the start of the film or the beginning of the film, this is the first action. So the first action should be used in the form of the past perfect. So when we arrived an hour late, or we arrived an hour late, the film had begun an hour earlier. So had begun, this is the first action or the action that happened first. The next one. Okay, the next one. The next, your answer. Mona didn't send the message to her until she space it. So this is the correct answer. Had written. Mona didn't send the message to her until she had written it. As you know that I'm talking about something that happened in the past. So you are talking about something that happened in the past. So letter A and letter D are committed, or I'm sorry, letter A and letter B are committed. Has been writing and has written, these two options are deleted because you are talking about something in the past and these are in the present. So A has been writing and has written, these are omitted. You are talking about something that happened in the past. As you know that until means up to the time when. For example, she waited until she had finished. So we use until to talk about when something began and ended. So using until when talking about past actions means you are talking about two actions. One of them happened before the other action. So one of the verbs should be in the past simple and the other must be in the past perfect. One of them should be in the past simple, like didn't send. So what's missing? Past perfect. So Mona didn't send the message to her until she had written. Okay, the next one. Think carefully. Okay. Space, feeling the pain of the injection. Feel the pain of the injection. You know the pain? She felt something sad. This is a sad experience. This is a sad feeling. She felt the sad of the injection. You know, injection, this is something such as a medicine. Okay, injection. When you go to the doctor can ask you to have an injection. Okay, as a kind of medicine. So feeling the pain of the injection, she gave a spontaneous cry. She shouted. So, as you know that all these four words, after no, after in, before, on, they all can be followed by a gerund. So you can say after feeling, in feeling, before feeling, on feeling. So you have to read the sentence carefully to know the exact meaning of each preposition or each connector. So the correct answer is on. Why? Because as you know that when on as a preposition or a connector is used, as a preposition is used or followed by a gerund, so on means immediately after or directly after. So she felt the pain of the injection. She gave a spontaneous cry. So there is no time mentioned before the two actions. So these are two actions that happened after each other directly. So on feeling means immediately after feeling or directly. So you cannot say after feeling. No, on is the correct one because on means directly or immediately after feeling the pain of the injection. She gave a spontaneous cry. So on means on followed by a gerund means immediately after or directly after. The next one. After the house space painted, we furnished it. Okay. After the house had been painted, we furnished it. Okay. Look, I'll read the sentence carefully once more again. After the house space painted, we furnished it. Look at the verb furnished. Okay, this is in the past form. Remember that present attracts present, past attracts past. So has been and letter C and is, they are not used anymore. So you cannot say after the house has, after the house is, because you are talking about something that happened in the past. So you cannot use the present tense and the past tense in one sentence. So you have to concentrate or you have to focus on had or had been. I have a question for you right now. Can a house paint? Of course not. So a house is not a subject. The house is not the doer of the action. The house cannot do anything. So the house is an object. So when the sentence starts with an object, so the passive form is necessarily to be used. So we have to use the passive form. So why the passive form? Because the house cannot do this action. The house cannot paint itself. So this is a subject, this is an object, not a subject. So the passive form is necessarily to be used. So after the house had been painted. So after the house had been painted, this is a past form, or this is a passive past form. The next one. I think we have mentioned something like that. Next one. Space finished my work, I went home. Remember that we are talking about past actions. Okay, the next or the correct answer is having finished my work, I went home. As I told you before that when having is followed by past participle like finished, like having finished, so this is an expression that is used to talk about finished actions. Like having graduated in medicine, she became a doctor, or after she had graduated in medicine she became a doctor. So in this example you can say after I had finished my work I went home, or having finished my work I went home. So having plus the past participle is used to talk about finished actions. Have you finished? Okay. No sooner had we heard the noise than we rushed to the boat. No sooner than. Remember this one. No sooner than. Remember that no sooner is placed on the part of the sentence. Describe the first or the prior or the previous action or the previous event. Remember also then is placed on the part describe the second or the latter event. So you can use the past simple did plus subject plus the main verb, or had subject plus the main verb. For example, no sooner had I finished. You can also say no sooner did I finished. Both are correct. So when no sooner goes at the beginning of the sentence, we use an inverted word order. That means the helping verb goes before the subject. Remember that when you start the sentence, or when no sooner goes at the beginning of the sentence, we use an inverted word order. That means the helping verb goes before the subject. So you can say no sooner had we heard, or you can also say no sooner did we hear. So both are correct, because no sooner can be followed by did subject main verb, or had subject plus the past participle. Both are correct. Think carefully. They space to spend the feast with us every year until we moved. Now let's see your answer. They used to spend the feast with us every year until we moved. Okay, listen carefully. Used to plus the base form or plus infinitive. This is a collocation. This is an expression we use to describe past situations or past experiences or past habits. So in this example, we are talking something that happened in the past. We are talking about past experiences or past situation or a past habit. So the correct answer is used to plus the base form or plus the infinitive. The next one, think carefully. Okay. I'd rather you bought this car. It is a bargain. I'd rather plus the subject is used as a helping verb. It's followed by the infinitive without to when the subject is the same as the subject of the next verb. So you can say I'd rather go. So the subject is the same. The subject I'd rather go. So I'd rather can be followed by infinitive without a subject. I'd rather play. I'd rather eat fish. I'd rather stay at home. I'd rather not go home. I'd rather not eat meat. So I'd rather can be followed by infinitive, only the infinitive without to, if the subject is the same as the subject of the next verb. So this is one subject, I'd rather. Okay, but if you have two subjects, like I'd rather you, I'd rather she, I'd rather he, I'd rather they. So in this example you have two subjects, but in the previous one you have only one subject. I'd rather go, this is one subject. I'd rather play, I'd rather not eat, I'd rather not stay. So this is one subject. So I'd rather is used in using one subject, or when the subject is the same as the subject of the verb or the next verb, use only infinitive. But I'd rather followed by a subject or a different subject, so you have to use the past subjunctive mood. So I'd rather is followed by a past subjunctive when the subject is different from the subject of the following verb. This happens when we talk about what we want someone else to do something. So we use the past subjunctive is used. For example, I'd rather you came, not come. I'd rather you were. I'd rather you were, not you are. I'd rather she bought, not she buys. I'd rather he weren't, not he isn't. I'd rather she left, not she leaves. So I'd rather, when I'd rather is followed by a subject, so you have to use the past subjunctive mood, I mean the past simple tense. So the correct answer, I'd rather you bought. I'd rather you bought, because I'd rather is followed by a different subject. So I'd rather, if I'd rather is followed by a different subject or another subject, so it should be used by the past subjunctive mood or the past tense. The next and the last one in our episode today. President Sadat died in 1981. Before that, our army spaced the Suez Canal in 1973. Okay, you have to think careful. Remember that we are talking about something that happened and started in the past. So President Sadat died in 1981. Before that, our army spaced the Suez Canal in 1973. Past is past. So the correct answer is crossed. See you next week, inshallah. Peace be upon you. Goodbye.